I'm strapped to a chair bolted into the floor, the restraints biting into my wrists and ankles. The air is damp, metallic, filled with the taste of rust and smoke. My chest rises too fast, every breath cutting into my lungs like glass. Sweat pours down my temples, sliding into my eyes, stinging until the world blurs. I blink hard, but the shadows don't move. They cling. The room hums with sound. A bell tolls somewhere deep in the mountain, low and metallic, as if the rock itself is groaning. Each strike rings through the steel frame of the chair, rattling my bones. Beneath it, voices swarm together. A dozen, maybe more, chanting in fractured tones. The syllables crash against one another, jagged and sharp. They don't harmonize. They corrupt. And then it comes, the other sound, a growl that doesn't belong to anything human. It rises and falls, weaving through the prayers, bending them down until they almost collapse into silence. The voices falter, but never stop. The growl drags them lower, deeper, until they scrape along the floor of my skull. I try to shut it out. I can't. A flicker moves across the far wall. A pale shape emerges, stepping into the dim light. My breath stalls. My throat tightens until I can't swallow. It's her. My wife. Or what's left of her. Her face is bloodless, skin stretched thin across bone. Her eyes are dark pits, and from them, streams of blood roll downward, red rivers carving through her cheeks. Her lips part as if she's about to smile, but it twists, turns inward, an accusation carved out of flesh. Henry, why didn't you save me? The words rip through me. It's not memory. It's her voice, here, now, echoing off the steel, crawling under my skin. My body jerks against the restraints. The straps cut deeper as I thrash. This isn't fucking real. God damn it, this isn't real. My shout tears my throat raw. I slam forward, the chair rattling, the bolts screaming in protest. The growl rises again, swallowing the chants, swallowing me. The bell strikes once more, louder, splitting my ears until the sound itself feels like it's bleeding out. And then the world collapses. The walls fall inward, the floor cracks, swallows the chair, swallows me. Her face melts into shadow, sliding away like ash caught in wind. All that's left is black. Black so thick it feels alive, pressing into my mouth, choking the air from my lungs. I gasp, but nothing comes. Only the dark. Silence takes everything. No bell, no voices. Just the hollow thud of my own heart beating too loud. My wrists tremble inside the straps, my pulse hammering so hard it feels like the veins will burst. I'm alone in the void, and still I hear her voice. Before I lost everything, before Seirath planted doubt inside me, I need to start from the beginning. My name is Henry Collins, American, middle-aged. I used to be a clinical psychologist before all of this, before the church, before the mountain. My wife was killed in a supermarket shooting 9 years ago. A man I'd never seen, carrying a rifle, decided the world owed him blood. I was there, and I could not stop it. I can still smell the gunpowder when I close my eyes. I can still see her lying on the floor tiles, eyes wide open, glass from the broken freezer door scattered across her hair. The cold mist from the broken refrigeration unit rolled over her body, mixing with the smell of blood and gunpowder. I knelt beside her, pressing my hands against the wound, but there was nothing left to save. She was already gone before I even understood what had happened. The Vatican doesn't pick the faithful for this job. They pick the broken. People who already know loss. People who don't have anything left to protect. Because you can't threaten someone with damnation when he's already living in it. I was recruited after I consulted with federal investigators on hostage cases. They told me my calm under pressure was unusual. They were wrong. I wasn't calm. I was empty. And emptiness, it turns out, is useful when you're staring at something that isn't supposed to exist. The place they brought me to is real. You can look it up. Cheyenne Mountain Complex, Colorado. Everyone thinks of NORAD, Cold War bunkers, nuclear defense. What they don't see is what's beneath the public stories. The mountain is riddled with tunnels, chambers, sealed doors thicker than a man is tall. Officially, it's just a command center. Unofficially, part of it belongs to the church. The cover is simple: military research, psychological testing, containment. But deeper inside, far beneath the granite, are the cells. Each cell lined with sigils carved into steel plates, reinforced by holy water in the ventilation. Silver threads woven into the seams of the walls. The guards carry rifles, but they're not meant for escape. They're meant for mercy if containment fails. The sound inside the mountain is never silence. The ventilation drones like a swarm of bees, the hum constant, crawling into your ears. Somewhere in the distance, there's always the groan of steel shifting under pressure, or the echo of boots striking metal grates. Every step feels amplified, like the whole mountain is listening. I worked here for years, long enough to know the people by their steps in the hallway. Cardinal Vincenzo Moretti, our overseer. His robes never touched the floor, even in this place. He never raised his voice, but when he looked at you, it was the same as confession. There was no hiding from him. Once, passing him outside the chapel, he placed a hand on my shoulder. Discipline, Collins. It will keep you alive when faith cannot. Father Miguel Alvarez, young, too young. He carried the rituals, the chants, the prayers that kept the seals from collapsing. His hands shook sometimes, but his voice never did. I often wondered if he believed in what he was saying, or if he was just afraid not to. He caught me staring once after a session and said quietly, "The words aren't for me, they're for the walls." Sister Claire Duval, 40 years old, French. She handled what no one else wanted. She sat with broken men after interviews, brought them water, whispered prayers over their shoulders. Some nights, I saw her weeping in the chapel, but she never faltered when she looked at us. "You carry the weight," she told me once, "but you don't have to carry it alone." Colonel Richard Hayes, the American liaison. Square jaw, gray hair, posture like a statue. He didn't ask questions. His orders were to maintain the cover story. National security was all he ever said. Agent Dana Brooks worked under him. 35, quiet, watchful. She escorted me every time I walked down into the sealed wing. Her boots clicked the same rhythm each night, like a metronome, counting down to something I never wanted to hear. Once, in the elevator descending into the deepest level, she broke the silence. "Do they ever look at you? Like they know you?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. We had rules, 5 of them. Not suggestions, not guidelines, they were survival. Rule 1. Never give your real name. Demons work with truth. They twist it, pull it through cracks. A name is a chain, and once you hand it over, you've already lost. Rule 2. Never speak of personal memory. They feed on it. Use it to build illusions that wrap around your mind. Memory is a door. Keep it closed. Rule 3. Never let the demon ask the questions. You control the frame. You decide the rhythm. If it leads, you follow into places you can't escape. Rule 4. The recorder must run at all times. Not because you'll play it back, because the demon knows it's being recorded. It hates being observed. It hates being bound to a witness other than you. Rule 5. End at 30 minutes, no matter what. If the time runs longer, the walls between here and them thin too much. The chanting priests upstairs can't hold it forever. 30 minutes, no more. I lived by these rules. They were my heartbeat. Every interview began the same way. Count the seals, check the mic, speak without fear. I believed in the pattern. I believed in routine. It kept me sane. And the truth is, it worked. For a long time, it worked. I met them one by one, and I came back each time. Case 1. A voice without a body. The chamber was empty, but when I stepped inside, the lights flickered and the air turned to static. The voice hissed out of nowhere. Male, female, both at once. It cursed in languages I didn't recognize, promised ruin. But it never moved beyond the edges of the seal. I spoke calmly. I reminded it of the rules. After 3 days it weakened, collapsed back into silence. Predictable. Case 2. A figure twisted into itself, shouting in broken Latin. It spat at the walls, screamed verses of corrupted scripture. For 72 hours, it raged. On the third night, the words slowed, broke apart, until all that remained was the sound of teeth clicking in the dark. Then silence. Predictable. Case 3. Something like an animal, long-limbed, hunched. Its jaws snapped when it lunged, but the holy water vents hissed, and it fell back each time. I interviewed it the same as I would a violent prisoner. Stop. Sit back. Short commands, deflections. In the end, it curled into the corner, trembling under the seals. Predictable. They were violent, they were grotesque, but they were patterns. You could chart them, you could anticipate. The rules held the line, and the rules never failed. I told myself it would always be that way, that no matter what shape came through those steel doors, I would meet it the same. Keep the rules, hold the frame, return alive. I believed it. I believed routine was enough. I believed nothing could break through discipline. But I was wrong. Because then I met Seirath. The first time I saw Seirath, I thought the guards had made a mistake. Every other thing I'd ever faced was grotesque, twisted, loud. This one was different. The cell was colder than the rest, a chill that clung to the back of my teeth. I walked in, the recorder already running, the mic light blinking red. My boots echoed against the steel floor, a rhythm I trusted. Routine. Always routine. It was the only way to keep my hands steady. He stood in the center, not chained, not pressed into the corners like the others. Just standing, like he'd been waiting for me. His form was almost human, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in nothing but the shadows cast by the fluorescent lights above. His eyes weren't wild, they weren't burning. They were calm, too calm. I sat down in the chair bolted to the floor, placed the recorder on the table between us. Session begins. Subject contained, environment stable. My voice sounded too loud against the silence. I forced myself to breathe in through my nose, out through my mouth, steadying the rhythm. He tilted his head, studying me. The movement was deliberate, patient, like he had all the time in the world. His lips parted. Henry. My throat closed. The air in the room thickened. He shouldn't have known my name. He couldn't have. I'd never given it. My pulse raced, my palms slick against the table. You don't use that name here, I said quickly. That name isn't for you. He didn't react with rage, not even annoyance. He just smiled. Slow. Precise. The kind of smile that isn't joy but knowledge. And then he spoke again, softer. She called you Henry, didn't she? When the glass broke, when the gunfire started, when you let her bleed out on the floor. The room shifted under me, my chest locked up. I clenched my fists until my nails dug into skin. I should have stopped. I should have reset, pulled myself back to the rules. But I didn't. I let the words out.
You don't know anything about her!
His smile widened, his teeth too even, too clean. He leaned forward, just slightly, like he'd been waiting for me to break the second rule. And in that instant, I knew I had. The lights flickered. Somewhere beyond the steel, a sound cracked like a gunshot. I flinched. The echo rolled down the corridor, bouncing back into the chamber. My ears rang, as if I were standing in that supermarket again, shards of glass raining down around me. But the guards outside didn't move. No one reacted. To them, nothing had happened. My stomach twisted. The cold air pressed down heavier. I pressed the heels of my hands into the table, grounding myself. Session continues. Subject attempting provocation. My voice cracked, thin and unconvincing. He chuckled, low, a sound too close to human laughter. But underneath it, I could hear the growl. The same growl that lived in the mountain's bones, threading through the walls. He'd found the crack in my armor, and now he was prying it open. I tried to reassert control, ask a question, keep the frame. Why are you here? How did they take you? But he ignored it. He kept his eyes on me, unblinking. The silence stretched long enough for the hum of the lights to become unbearable. Do you hear it, Henry? The shot that tore her away from you? Listen. Another crack split the air, louder. My hands twitched against the table. Sweat ran down my back, cold despite the chill. My ears buzzed with phantom echoes. I shook my head hard. No, that's not real. You can't do this. He leaned closer, voice no louder than breath. You already gave me the key. You opened the door yourself. The walls around me blurred. For an instant, I wasn't in the chamber anymore. I was back in the supermarket. The smell of bread baking from the deli counter. The squeal of shopping carts. Then the pop of the first gunshot, sharp and final. Screams erupted around me. I turned and saw her, my wife, clutching her chest, staggering, glass exploding around her. I lurched forward, but my legs were heavy, too slow, like I was running underwater. The sound swelled until it filled every corner of me. I blinked and I was back in the chamber. Seirath hadn't moved. The recorder still blinked red. The table was still under my hands, but the echo of the gunshot kept bouncing in my skull. My breaths came short, uneven. I clenched my jaw until it hurt. You stay out of that. You don't touch her. He tilted his head again, eyes glinting like knives. I don't need to touch her. You already carry her death inside you. I just show you the truth you hide. The hum of the lights faltered again. For a second the chamber warped, walls stretching, the ceiling rising, the table pulling farther from me. I gripped the edge, refusing to let go. The illusion pulsed like a heartbeat, threatening to swallow me whole. I forced myself to speak, to steady the frame. This session will end on my terms. He laughed, not cruel but certain, like the outcome had already been decided. No, Henry, it ends on mine. The sound of boots echoed faintly down the hall, real this time. The guards shifted outside, restless. They couldn't hear what I was hearing, couldn't see what was bleeding through. To them, it was just another interview. To me, it was the start of the fracture. I pushed back from the table, breathing hard, trying to separate illusion from reality. I tapped the recorder with my finger, a reminder it was still there, still blinking red. I repeated the rules in my head, clinging to them like lifelines. 30 minutes. Never let them ask the questions. Keep memory closed. But the damage was done. I had broken Rule 2, and Seirath knew it. The air vibrated again, a low rumble building in the steel floor. It wasn't just sound anymore, it was weight pressing down, grinding into my ribs. I swallowed hard, the taste of iron filling my mouth. My hands trembled. He hadn't moved, but he didn't need to. He'd already stepped inside my head. I sat frozen, waiting for him to strike, to show his true form, to bare teeth or claws. But he didn't. He just stood there, still and calm, as if my fear was enough. His calm was worse than rage. It was patience. And patience meant he could wait forever. The first illusion had begun, and I was already inside it. The recorder blinked, the seals hummed. On paper, everything was in order, but I knew the truth. The game had already shifted, and I was losing. The illusions didn't come all at once. They layered themselves, thin sheets stacking over my senses until I couldn't tell where one ended and the next began. By the time I realized it, I was already buried. The first layer was the supermarket. I was back under the buzzing fluorescence, the aisles stretching endless in every direction. The smell of bread, detergent, coffee, all mingling like nothing had gone wrong. Then the sound. Gunfire. Shards of glass spraying across the floor. My wife stepped out from behind a shelf, eyes searching for me. She wasn't pale, not a corpse. She was alive, whole, reaching toward me. Henry. The sound of my name was enough to tear open everything. My throat locked, my knees weak. I staggered forward, desperate to reach her, to hold her, but every step dragged like I was sinking through molasses. She was only 10 feet away, then 20, then farther. The space stretched as if the aisles were mocking me. I called out, "I'm here! Don't move, I'm here!" But she only tilted her head, sadness carving lines across her face. "Why didn't you save me?" The words tore me apart. I pushed forward harder, arms out, but the floor melted into liquid glass, swallowing my legs. The gunshots kept firing, echoing around me, each one snapping my bones from the inside. I screamed until my voice shredded. Then the air cracked, the illusion folding in on itself. I blinked, and she was gone. The aisles twisted, collapsing into darkness. I was back in the chamber, or what I thought was the chamber. The recorder still blinked, steady, like it hadn't seen what I had. My lungs burned, my chest ached, and my body shook as if I'd just lived the entire death all over again. The second layer came sharper. The walls reshaped, stretching outward. The steel plates dissolved, and suddenly I was in another cell. Case 1. I recognized it immediately. The empty chamber, the static hissing in the corners. But this time, the voice wasn't disembodied. It had a mouth, lips curling, eyes narrow. It stood there, twisted, mocking me. "You claimed I lied, but you lied first." I shook my head, but the memories flooded back. I had deflected questions, pushed too hard, twisted responses into patterns that suited the Vatican's reports. I told myself it was for control, for containment. But here, inside this illusion, the voices became a jury. Another cell flickered into view. Case 2. The Latin screaming, only now the words were clear, translated into my own tongue. "You broke me to make your report clean!" Spittle flew, burning my face like acid. My own voice echoed back, calm, clinical, replayed from the recorder, twisted against me. Case 3 emerged. An animal crouched, long limbs trembling. But it wasn't attacking. It cowered, whispering. "You told them I was nothing but rage, but you never listened." Its eyes met mine, wide, terrified. I felt bile in my throat. I had never admitted it before. I had simplified, stripped down, reduced everything into predictable patterns, because that's what they wanted. The illusions showed me not monsters, but the weight of my choices. I stumbled back, my chest tightened. No, that's not how it was. That's not real. The chamber folded again, and suddenly I was in a hall I'd never seen before. Ornate, tall ceilings, banners hanging crimson and gold. A Vatican chamber, but hidden, sealed from the faithful. Around the table sat men in red robes, military officers in dress uniform. Their pens scratched against parchment, their hands signed agreements in silence. I knew the faces, Cardinal Moretti at the head, his eyes shadowed. Colonel Hayes beside him, lips pressed into a hard line. Alvarez stood at the edge, hands tightly gripping his prayer book, but his eyes refused to meet mine. Sister Claire lingered behind them, face pale, rosary clutched so tight her knuckles blanched. None of them spoke to me. They only signed, page after page, as if the ink itself was more sacred than the truth. Moretti's voice filled the room, steady, measured. "This partnership secures not faith, but power. The demons are resources. Fear is leverage. Containment is negotiation." My stomach churned. The soldiers nodded, stamping seals of state next to the Vatican's crest. It wasn't holy, it was politics. I gripped the edge of the table, shouting, "What are you doing? This isn't righteousness, this is a bargain!" No one looked up. Their pens moved in unison, their voices droned. The air grew heavy with incense and iron. I turned, desperate, but everywhere I looked, the faces multiplied, robes and uniforms blurring into a single mass. Their mouths opened together, chanting words I couldn't understand, a pact written in languages not meant for men. I staggered back, heart pounding. Jesus Christ, what the fuck is this? And then his voice came again, closer, everywhere. Seirath's whisper, threading through the council chamber, sliding down my spine. "Henry, where is the truth? With the men you fear or the ones you trust? Where is the line between them?" The chamber dissolved, the faces melting like wax, leaving only his silhouette in the dark. His eyes burned steady, patient, unhurried. I couldn't breathe. My body trembled. I reached for the recorder, but it was gone. The table was gone. All that remained was the echo of my own doubts, his whispers feeding them. The illusions didn't stop. They shifted again, sharper this time. I was in the chapel of the complex, but it wasn't Claire praying at the altar. It was myself, kneeling, whispering words I didn't believe. My own voice rang back to me, hollow, false. "Forgive me, Father, for I no longer know who is the sinner." The echo twisted into laughter, his laughter. The smell of sulfur rolled in, mixing with candle smoke. I clutched my head. "Stop this! Get out of my head!" But the walls stretched further, pulling me deeper, each layer tighter, heavier. I couldn't claw my way back. The seals were meaningless here. The rules were nothing. Seirath's form stepped out from behind the altar, robes of a cardinal draped across his frame. His voice was calm, unshaken. "They preach salvation. They trade in fear. Which do you believe, Henry?" I couldn't answer. My throat seized. The visions blurred, overlapping. The supermarket gunfire, the tortured prisoners, the council's signatures, my own false prayers. They pressed against each other until I couldn't tell which was the lie, which was the truth. Then the fourth layer broke through. I was no longer in the chapel. I was in a courtroom, massive and ancient, stone walls lit by torches. On the bench sat figures in both robes and uniforms, but their faces were blank masks. They slammed gavels in unison, their sound like thunder. In the witness box was my wife, alive, whole. She looked at me with wide eyes, trembling hands clutching a Bible. He let me die. The masked judges all turned to me. Their voices roared together. Guilty! 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 The sound pounded against my skull, drilling deeper with every echo. I tried to speak, but my voice broke apart. I could only gasp, choking on the air. I collapsed to my knees, trembling. My mouth opened, but only one thought came out. I don't know anymore. Seirath knelt beside me, his shadow blotting out the light of the torches. His whisper touched my ear like frost. That is enough. Doubt is the seed, and the seed is already planted. The world buckled. My vision split, fractured. I reached for something solid, anything real, but there was nothing left. The chamber was gone. The council was gone. The chapel was gone. The courtroom was gone. Only his voice remained, threading through the darkness, pulling me deeper.
The alarms didn't start in my head. They started outside, where the machines tracked every beat of my heart, every surge of my blood. I didn't see them, but I could feel the pull, the way the world itself seemed to lean. Somewhere beyond the chamber, alarms must have flashed red, warnings, danger. They always said the body knows before the mind admits it, but I wasn't in the body anymore. I was deeper, falling, and I didn't know where the bottom was. I remember Alvarez's voice, faint, as though bleeding through the walls. He's slipping. We're losing him. His words were thin threads, almost severed by the weight pressing in. Then Moretti's command followed, strong, anchored, cutting across the static. Prepare the right, now! Their voices were ropes above me, but I couldn't climb. My hands weren't there anymore. I was somewhere else. The hallway stretched long, endless. The walls cracked like veins in broken glass. From the fractures poured light, blinding and wrong. My ears rang, a steady tone that swallowed thought. And then she appeared. My wife. Stepping out from the cracks as though the light itself had given her form. Her skin was warm, her eyes alive, her voice soft and trembling. Henry, you promised you'd protect me. My chest shattered. Every instinct screamed to run to her, to hold her, to tell her it hadn't been my fault. I took a step forward, legs unsteady. I could almost smell her, soap, coffee, the faintest trace of her perfume. She raised her hand, fingers open, waiting. Behind her, Seirath's shadow stretched across the wall, tall, patient, unwavering. His voice slid through the cracks into my ears, colder than the air itself. Take her hand. Accept it. This is the truth. My throat tore. This isn't real. You're not her. You're not fucking her. The world shuddered. The cracks widened, spilling light across the floor. The sigils that once lined the chamber walls burned bright in my vision, then splintered, like ice under pressure. The sound of bells rang through the hall, tolling from nowhere and everywhere. The vibrations hit my chest, rattled my teeth. The air tasted of iron and ash. She looked at me again, eyes filling with tears. "Why are you fighting me? Don't you see? I'm here. I've always been here." I stumbled back, fists clenched, shaking my head hard enough to feel the veins straining. My voice cracked. "No, you're not her. You can't be. She's gone. She's gone!" The shadow of Seirath bent forward, arms stretching, claws wrapping around the edges of the vision. "If she's gone, why does she still speak? Why does she still stand before you?" I wanted to answer, but words fell apart in my mouth. My lungs seized. The bells tolled louder, the sigils blazed brighter, then fractured again, spilling shards of light that cut like glass. My wife reached further, her hand trembling in the air between us. For a moment, I almost reached back. Somewhere beyond the illusion, the chanting began. I heard Alvarez, his voice cracked but insistent, Latin syllables punching through the dark. "Exorcizo te, omnis immundus spiritus." His tone carried force I had never heard in him before. Moretti's voice joined, heavier, commanding, words driven like nails into wood. Their prayers wove together, strong enough to pull against the tide that swallowed me. Inside I felt the floor quake. The walls of the hall splintered more violently, fissures exploding with white fire. My wife screamed, a sound that ripped me open. "Henry!" Her face warped, tearing, half hers, half shadow. Seirath's whisper climbed over her voice. "Choose her, choose me, or lose everything." I dropped to my knees. My hands covered my ears, but the voices slipped through skin, through bone, straight into the marrow. "God, please, I can't do this. I can't." The illusion deepened. I was pulled into a smaller room, a memory that wasn't mine. I saw Claire kneeling in the chapel, whispering prayers, but her voice twisted, becoming my wife's again. "Henry, kneel with me. Pray with me. You can save me if you just believe." I staggered forward, reaching, but the rosary in her hands dripped blood, the beads melting into her skin. The smell of copper filled my nose. Back outside, Claire actually knelt at my side, gripping my wrist with both hands. Her whisper was steady, desperate. "Come back. Henry, come back." I wanted to listen to her. I wanted to fight. But Seirath's voice returned, threading between both women, blending them until I couldn't tell who spoke. "Faith or truth, Henry? Which one will you hold?" I screamed until my throat tore raw. I won't believe you!" But the vision shifted again. This time, I stood before a mirror. The glass fogged, then cleared, and it wasn't me staring back. It was Seirath. His grin, his eyes, but dressed in my skin. The reflection moved when I did, every gesture identical. Then it spoke in my own voice. "Maybe you've always been me. Maybe I've always been you." I punched the mirror. Glass shattered, embedding into my hands, but the reflection didn't break. He kept moving with me, smiling wider. Blood ran down my fingers, dripping onto the floor, but even that turned black in the reflection. I stumbled back, horrified. "No, that's not me. That's not me!" Then another layer opened. I was in the Vatican itself, in St. Peter's Basilica, but it was empty. No worshippers, no priests, only silence. I walked down the nave, my footsteps echoing too loud. At the altar, I saw the cardinals and officers again, but this time, when I called to them, they turned their backs. Every one of them. The sound of the great doors slamming behind me thundered like a verdict. Moretti's voice echoed from the shadows. "You are not ours anymore." I reached out, begging, "Don't leave me! Don't turn away!" But they filed out in silence,
disappearing into the side chapels, leaving me alone under the dome. The frescoes above twisted, the saints' faces stretching into masks of horror. Their painted eyes wept blood that dripped down onto the marble floor. And through it all, Seirath's voice coiled tighter. "See how they abandon you. See how they fear you. Which is worse, Henry? Their silence or my truth?" The dome cracked. White light poured in, tearing the fresco apart. The saints burned away, their faces screaming silently. I fell to the floor, clutching my head, lost between their abandonment and his presence. My voice cracked again. "I can't. I don't know what's real anymore." The shadow leaned close, his grin splitting wider. "That's enough. That's all I need." And then the light broke. The sigils erupted, blasting through the cracks with a roar like thunder. Bells crashed in unison, their sound shaking the marrow of the mountain itself. The white light surged through the hall, flooding every fracture, burning away shadow and false skin alike. I screamed, my throat tearing raw, as the light devoured everything. Her face, his shadow, the hall itself. I collapsed into it, falling, until my eyes snapped open. The chamber returned. The table, the recorder, the steel walls. I was on the floor, gasping, my body drenched in sweat, my chest heaving like I'd been drowning. Alvarez was kneeling near me, his hand gripping the crucifix so tight his knuckles bled. Claire crouched close, her hand on my shoulder, whispering steady words I couldn't understand. Moretti stood rigid, eyes narrowed, his voice still echoing the final lines of prayer. The air was heavy with the smell of smoke and sulfur. Seirath lay collapsed in the center of the chamber, his form no longer calm. His body convulsed once, then stilled, the shadow draining out of him as though he'd been hollowed. The sigils along the walls glowed one final time before dimming, settling back into silence. I lay there, shaking, lungs burning, my throat raw. The light was gone, but his voice wasn't. It lingered, thin, slithering in the back of my skull. "You will remember me, Henry. Always." I gasped again, the sound ragged, desperate, but I didn't answer. I couldn't. There was nothing left in me to give. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, knowing the battle hadn't ended. It had only changed shape. I left the mountain the next morning. My resignation was already written, though I didn't remember putting pen to paper. Moretti didn't argue. He only looked at me once, long and hard, like he was measuring whether I'd survive outside. Then he signed it, and I walked away. I never went back. Now I live in a small town in Colorado, a place where the mountains don't hum with steel and secrets. The streets are quiet after dark, and people still wave when they pass. I rent a room above a hardware store, the floorboards creak, the window leaks cold air. It should feel safe. It should feel normal. But it doesn't. At night, I hear it again. Not the alarms, not the chants, not even the bells. Just the whisper. Always the whisper. It crawls in from the edges of the dark, threading through the cracks in the walls. Who is real? Who is false? Who is righteous? Who wears the mask? I sit up in bed, drenched in sweat, my chest heaving like I'm still down there. I tell myself it's memory, that it's just the aftertaste of the mountain. But memory doesn't speak. Memory doesn't wait for you in the silence. Sometimes, when I walk the streets, I see faces I know I shouldn't. Alvarez buying groceries. Claire crossing the street. Moretti staring from the steps of the church. I blink and they're gone. I tell myself they're phantoms, my mind replaying pieces of what I lost. But the doubt grows. What if they're here? What if they followed me out? I stopped going to church. I can't hear scripture without hearing the council chamber beneath it. Pens scratching against parchment. Faith traded like currency. I can't look at the cross without seeing the cracks glowing red. I can't hear a bell without tasting ash. The truth is, I don't know who to believe anymore. The church told me demons were absolute evil, and I believed them. But I saw men in robes and men in uniforms speak with the same hunger. I saw salvation sold like a contract, and in Seirath's voice,
As much as I hate to admit it, there was no rage, no madness, only patience, only certainty. My confession isn't about the monsters we cage, it's about the doubt they leave behind. I wonder, sometimes, if the world would really end if they escaped. Or if it would only begin again, stripped bare of all the masks. Maybe the end isn't fire. Maybe it's clarity. I whisper it to myself, late at night, when the air feels heavy and the walls lean close. If one day they break free, maybe that won't be the end. Maybe that will only be the order we were too afraid to face. The words settle in my chest like stone, heavy, final. I press my hands together, not in prayer, but to stop them from shaking. The last thing I'll tell you is this. The voice has never left. It lingers, quiet, patient. And some nights, when the dark is too thick, I almost believe it. I sit in my room, the light off, the air cold. I stare at my hands, trembling in the dark. My lips move before I can stop them. This isn't real, right?